Okay, thank you everybody for joining us today, especially on this freezing cold Friday afternoon. Hopefully you're not snowed in, or if you are snowed in, I hope you're enjoying watching us this afternoon. Armed with a nice hot cup of coffee today. So bearing in mind that it's Mother's Day next weekend, what we thought we'd put together for you today is a hand-tied bouquet. A very similar principle to the type of hand-tie bouquet that you do for a bridesmaid or a bride, but obviously on a slightly larger scale and popped into its own receptacle of water. So I'm just going to prepare my flowers first. I'm using this rather lovely chrysanthemum called Ferrari. It's a spray chrysanthemum, really lovely lime colour, nice and vibrant, very appropriate for the spring. Now, what you need to do with hand-tie bouquet is make sure that all of the foliage is removed below the tying point. Alright, so just going to start doing that. I have already prepared the other stems. And my stem count for this bouquet is 5 stems of spray chrysanthemum, 5 stems of roses, 3 stems of lily, 5 stems of mini gerbera, and then some assorted foliage. The chrysanthemum, as I said, is Ferrari. The rose that I'm going to use is one called Pink Avalanche. Now, with roses, they have like a self-preserving system really, where they have like a rather coarse, slightly unattractive petal on the outside. Now this is what we call a guard petal. They can easily be removed. It's not detrimental to the longevity of the rose, but it just make it look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So I've removed the guard petals and I'm removing any of the leaves that are going to be below the tying point. Very fortunately for anyone that works with flowers, avalanche tend to be quite thorn free, so I haven't had to remove any of the thorns from this one, and it's really comfortable to work with. Okay, so this lily that I'm using is one called Muscat, and as you can see it's started to develop, so you can see the pollen. So I'm just going to pull the stamens out. If you pull them out when they're only just showing, only just starting to develop, they haven't formed the sort of fluffy pollen. So actually, as you can see, I rub it in my hand, you can see you don't get any stains. Once they've started to develop a little bit more fully and they've got all the fluffy pollen on them, then that's when you get the stain issue. The best way to remove stains is if you get something brushed on your sleeve, get a piece of sellotape, push that against the pollen, remove it, and then it should take the pollen away with it. It's the pollen under the microscope looks like a little ball with lots of little hooks on, and it's those hooks that actually grab into your fabric. Alright, now with the lily, again, removing all of the lower leaves that are going to be below the tying point. And then the gerberas, you've probably seen me show you loads of times before about this, but once again, how to wire a gerbera. It's what we call external wiring. Pop the wire into the head of the gerbera and then just twist the wire all the way down the stem. Again, it's not detrimental to the longevity of the gerbera. It doesn't affect the cell structure. What it does do is keep it in an upright position, but it also gives you some flexibility with the head because you can actually bend them into the position that you want. Alright, so just to recap, we've got Ferrari spray chrysanthemum, we've got Pink Avalanche roses, got Muscat oriental lilies, Rambo mini gerbera, and then my selection of foliage that I have here is pistache, as in pistachio nuts, that kind of thing, so pistache. I've got Laurustinus. Now the Laurus here is non-blooming, so it's just purely foliage. You can buy it on our website with the little white blooms, and you can also buy it with the slate grey berries, but this is the non-flowering. Got acacia or mimosa. Again, this is non-flowering, this is just the foliage. And I've got buxus. And again, just removing any of the leaves that are going to be below the tying point. Now I'm going to use twine, garden twine, to tie with. Some people use ribbons, some people use other formats. I prefer to use the twine, the garden twine, simply because it is biodegradable. So when the bouquet is dead, everything here except for the wire on the mini gerbers will be biodegradable, so it can be thrown away in your green rubbish box. Right, so starting off with a couple of pieces of buxus. I'm actually going to make a round hand tied of greenery, just to act as a support for all of the flowers. And even though it's just the greenery and we haven't started putting the flowers in yet, I have started to do those in a spiral form, and I've kept the tying point in one place. Okay, the beauty of doing that is it enables everything to stand and balance quite well. A couple of pieces of greenery here I'm just going to add in, give a bit more substance. Okay, so as you can see, that's the start of the hand tied. Now I'm going to start off with a lily in the centre. I'm actually going to pop that all the way down the centre of the bouquet. Now if you imagine that your hand is the vase, you can actually use that to release and tighten the foliage so you can slide the flowers in. Okay, so that's the lily that I've started with. Then I'm going to add a rainbow and some of the chrysanthemums, and very much working in a circular motion, adding flowers as we go along and keeping very much to that spiral format. Okay, so if you've got any questions, please post them below, and Laura and I will do our absolute utmost to try and answer you as best we can. Okay, tell us about your weather conditions today as well, because it's absolutely horrendous out there today. Tell us what you're doing. You've got something nice and hot to drink. Tell us what flowery plans you have coming up, whether you've got good events coming up in the year that you need to plan for. And obviously we can help you with that as well, should you need any help. And if there are any particular items of floristry that you'd like us to demonstrate for you to help give you tips and hints, then obviously ask us to do that. Everything that I'm using today is available on our website. That's www.trianglenursery.co.uk. So if there are flowers that you see me using here today you'd actually like to try and work with yourselves, then please do feel able to go and order online. It's a really easy, really good ergonomic website, very easy to use, just like any e-commerce site. Very, very straightforward. Just follow the directions, and obviously if you do encounter any issues, by all means give us a call and we'll talk you through.
We've got Debbie O'Hara asking, can we just buy the stuff, or do we have to buy on bulk?
Okay, so there isn't a restriction on, there isn't a minimum order. There's no restriction on the quantities that you buy. The only restriction is that because we're wholesale, you have to buy in bunch quantities. So for example, the chrysanthemums I think currently are in 20s, the roses are in 20s, the lilies are in 10s, and the mini gerberas are in 30s. So I guess it is bulk, but for example at Mother's Day it doesn't take very long to use up 20 stems of chrysanthemum and 20 stems of roses, etc. I mean, there are other varieties that you can buy in 10s, Lysianthus for example, and things like that. So you don't have to buy in 20s, but it does depend very much on the variety that you select. Each individual item on a website does have a picture to aid you with your choice and your selection, and by clicking on that that picture, it will also take you to another page which actually gives you slightly more information on that variety. It will give you the grading. Now, we do actually purchase our flowers from two separate auctions, Aalsmeer and Rijnsburg, and they both grade their flowers in two different ways. One grades them in a lettering system, A1 being the better grade and BA being the lesser grade, and then the other auction grade their flowers in a star system, 5-star being the absolute best that you can buy, and then coming down in stars. Now, if you buy a lesser grade flower, that doesn't mean you're going to get poor quality product. That actually means that they haven't been graded as well within the bunch. So, for example, you might get a kinked stem, you might get differing head sizes, and so on and so forth. It's almost like buying your pristine apples from one of the top range supermarket and then going and getting your apples from the local farm shop when they're windfalls or something like that. So that's kind of the difference. All right, hope that's helpful. So still carrying on with the bouquet here, I'm just going to add another one of the roses. All right. I'm just going to try and finish this bouquet. I can't talk and arrange at the same time. I can really, but okay, so nearly finished on this bouquet. As you can see, we're just spiraling the stems. I'll just pop that last mini gerber in. Oh, that's our bouquet. So you can see how I've kept the stems all spiraled. I'm just going to tie it off with some string.
There's an art to this.
There is an art to this. I've just covered that. Whoops, I've just knocked my rose off. Let me move that. There we go. I've just covered that tying point with some pot tape. And then I prepared earlier some wrapping ready for this bouquet. So basically starting off with a square of cellophane. Then for the wrapping around the bouquet, I've literally folded it over. So you have, I don't know if you can see that, you've literally got 2 points. Alright, so I've done that with 3 pieces, and in true Blue Peter style, here's one I did earlier. I realise now I haven't actually got my sellotape, so just bear with me 2 seconds. Ah, somebody was really organised for me. Sellotape. Okay, so my wrapping, I have 3 pieces of cellophane here that I've bent and got the little points on. Now, folding that round the tying point. A bit of a delinquent rose there, it's not going where it's supposed to. And literally just sellotape that around the tying point. And then the next one. So don't forget to hit that like button if you can hear us, and don't forget to share us with your friends. And if you'd like some more tips and hints on varying styles of arrangements and different aspects of the flower trade, then do go to our YouTube channel, where you'll find lots of other tips and hints and how-to guides. And as I was saying earlier, if there's something specific you'd like us to focus on, then by all means do ask, and we'll try and slot that in one of our regular Friday lunchtime live streams. Okay, so we have, I don't know if you can see, sorry? Okay, yeah, we'll try not to cause any electrical issues here this afternoon. Oops. Okay, So I'm just going to take the edges of the cellophane down so they don't flap. Now, as you can see, where I've taped the stems, it's still in that same tying point. And that's how the wrapping looks. Now, the next thing to do is to cut the stems. So, judge how long you want your stems to be, depending on what receptacle you're putting the bouquet into. I'm actually sorry, disappearing, I'm just finding where my box is. I'm actually going to use a bag. So you can imagine that's going to come up to about there. So cut the stems there. Gosh, tough stems here. That's the foliage. I'm just firing the stems off at my colleague Laura here. Sorry Laura, I didn't mean to hit you. Okay. So, at the risk of making myself look a fool here this afternoon, sign of a good hand... Sorry, that one was quite violent, I do apologise. At the risk of making myself look an idiot this afternoon, the sign of a good hand tied is that it will stand on its own. Okay, so I will stand it up there. So to put the bottom, as it were, on the base of the arrangement, I'm just going to fold corners over and score the middle, so you know where the centre of the cellophane is, and that's there. So then place the bouquet in the middle. Sorry. Get my string ready, and then bring cellophane up. If you can, try not to get this part too tight, because that's effectively going to be your water receptacle. So the more space you can get water in there, the longer it's going to be before the bouquet needs topping up. And again, the trusty string. Nice and tightly around the stems. Now at this point you can put a bow on this tying point if you're not using a box or a bag. I'm going to use a bag, so I'm not going to bother putting a bow on that. And then just fill that with water. So just a jug of water, basic jug of water. At this point you can put flower food in with the water if you wish to. And just fill the bouquet up. Now I would use normally another jug of water, because as you can see it's only gone so far up the water bag. So another jug would bring it up to here. But just for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to pop this in to the bag. And there you have your Mother's Day hand tie bouquet. Alright. Well, I hope you've enjoyed watching us this afternoon and managed to get through the whole demonstration this afternoon without making a fool of myself and using a very strange voice. I hope you all managed to stay dry, warm and out of all of the danger of the snow that's about at the moment. Thank you very much for listening to us this afternoon. I hope you've enjoyed it. Got any comments, again, please post them, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.